And here we are again talking about the Los Angeles Clippers underachieving in the Paul George Kawhi Leonard era. I'm just going to say it off the rip. I'm sick and tired of these guys. I wasn't in support of them. I do believe that they would have won a championship by now if they're fully healthy, but they're never fully healthy. They're never going to be. This is officially the end of me being a Clippers believer. I just can't do it anymore. Now, I picked the Dallas Mavericks to win the series, even if Kawhi was healthy. But even when Kawhi was healthy, you went 0-2 in games he played. So it wouldn't have made that much of a difference. I mean, long term, probably. But when you're coming back from injury, you're out of rhythm. Kawhi Leonard would not have been in rhythm if he played. So let's just stop that narrative that the series would have been different if he did play. The Clippers were going to lose regardless. They have no heart. James Harden, that was one of the worst trades ever. That's the biggest reason I'm happy the Clippers lost, since I do not like James Harden. I'm wearing a 76ers shirt in solidarity for the Sixers and the James Harden fiasco, because I do not like James Harden at all. And I knew immediately as the Clippers acquired him that this was going to be the outcome of their season. Because what did James Harden do when it mattered most? Absolutely nothing. And that is why the Clippers are going home. Russell Westbrook, he is not in a good role for him. Stop Russell Westbrook slander. Stop Russell Westbrook hate. This was a terrible role for him. I mean, you put him on the Suns. Hey, he can do his thing. All he has to do is play make, run the offense. That's when his best role is. But when you're using him as a set shooter, that's not a great role for Russell Westbrook. Paul George, the last two games was abysmal. I've been a big-time Paul George believer. I'm a big-time Paul George fan. I don't think he could be a 1 or a 2 option on a championship team anymore. I think he has to be the third option. He needs to get out of Los Angeles, though, because there's too much there's not enough structure in Los Angeles for him to achieve success anymore. And that's just the unfortunate reality we live in. I think the Clippers need to blow it up this offseason. They went all in on a James Harden deal because they thought this was their year. Well, this was not their year. They have so much value on the roster, nothing to show for it. You have 18 Hall of Famers, and still didn't make it out the first round. There's not much else to say other than that. Same thing every year. But anyways, in today's video, we're going to talk about what I believe the Clippers should do in this offseason. And yeah, I got a lot to say about the Clippers, if you couldn't tell. I'm not happy at all about the Clippers. I'm sick and tired of them. It's that simple. Let's look at the roster real quick. Got James Harden, a free agent. Unless he got his extension, I'm honestly just letting Harden walk at this point. I mean, re-sign him, obviously, though. That's what they're going to do. For too much money for a player that does what he does in the postseason every year. Kawhi Leonard on the books for 3 years. He's not going to be traded. You could not possibly trade him, since he's so unreliable that you couldn't even trade him to a team and get high-value draft capital. It's just the reality you're in. Paul George has a player option. If I was Paul George, I would be declining this immediately, and I'd be taking my talent somewhere else, like the 76ers. I've been preaching that. What other teams with Paul George? The Knicks. Paul George on the Knicks would be beautiful. I'd love to see that. Cavaliers would be nice. If the Cavs lose Mitchell, I think Paul George would be a perfect fit there. The Magic are interesting. Pacers, 76ers, we have said. Every team could want Paul George. I mean, if you have the money for Paul George and you're a team that wants to contend next year, go after Paul George. A perfect complementary star. Although it's not working out in LA. LA just has too many guys that need the ball in their hand. He's not going to get enough touches. But if you have touches available and you need a guy that can come in, play defense, and be a scorer, Paul George is your guy. And you don't want him to be your number one option, but man, Paul George on the Mavericks would be very, very interesting as well. Yeah, those are really the only teams I mean, if I'm Paul George, I want to go to the Knicks or Sixers in the offseason. That's where I would be trying to take my talents to. And if I was a player of his caliber, imagine a duo of Paul George and Jalen Brunson. That would be pretty good, to say the least. Paul George and Jalen Brunson. Yeah. I mean, Paul George, Anunoby, Brunson, DiVincenzo, and Mitchell Robinson or Isaiah Hartenstein. See, the Knicks aren't unrealistic now that you have to factor in Julius Randle. Never mind. So I'm trying to go to Orlando, Philadelphia, or Cleveland. Cleveland's definitely a sneaky bet. I would like to see Paul George at. And then I'd also like to see him on the Mavericks. I think he'd be an amazing fit on the Mavericks. But of course, it depends on how much money these teams have. We're not going to make a mock trade. We're not going to make a mock scenario because we don't know what these other teams' season's going to end like. We need to know the draft order. We need to know a lot of things before we can start making predictions like that. If I'm Paul George, I do not want to be a Clipper anymore. Norman Powell has 2 years left. Sixth Man of the Year finalist. He's very, very good at his role, being a sixth man. I do think the Clippers should consider trading him, though, simply because that's another player that very offensive, like very highly valued offensively, and you could get a lot of value back for him. And I just think at this point, you don't need any more guys that can just score the basketball. You have James Harden, you have Kawhi Leonard, you have Paul George. There's not enough touches. And when Norman Powell's in the game, he's going to take more touches. Russell Westbrook, to be effective, needs to have the ball in his hand. It's the reality of it. I mean, Russell Westbrook does have a player option. I would expect him to decline it, actually. But anyway, back to Norman Powell. I think the Clippers could trade him to a team that actually values him and wants to give him touches. I don't know what I would do in their situation, but one thing's for sure. You can't have 5 players that are only effective with the ball in their hand. And that's what they have right now. Zubac had a good year this year. 1 year left. He has value, but I would hold on to him. PJ Tucker player option. If it was a team option, I'd be declining it because he's making about $12 million a season. Not ideal. Terrence Mann at $11 million. That's good for another year. He's a good fit. Not a problem with that. Plumlee's a free agent. Bones Highland, team option. You must decline it because he doesn't want to be there. I mean, you should honestly just try and trade him because he does have a little bit of value. He is a high-powered scorer that can come off the bench and get buckets. So, honestly, I would say you just keep Bones Highland and move Norman Powell. Bones Highland can fill that role very easily. I mean, Norman Powell is more of a veteran, but at the end of the day, you have to save money in order to make your team better. And Norman Powell makes $11 million. No, Norman Powell makes $19 million a season. Bones Highland makes $4 million a season. So you save $15 million by moving on from Norman Powell and going in a direction of having Bones Highland as your sixth man, which isn't a bad idea at all. I mean, he's a microwave scorer just like Norman Powell. He's just very young, but young players need confidence. And to move on from Norman Powell for Bones Highland, that would instill confidence in them and just not deal with all the drama that the Clippers are accustomed to having. Then Russell Westbrook, he has a player option. As I said, I would decline it if I were him. This was a perfect scenario for him until they traded for James Harden. And I'm still upset about that since Russell Westbrook finally resurrected himself in an image last year in the postseason, beginning of this year. And then, of course, as soon as James Harden comes in, he begins to struggle again. It's really sickening as an NBA fan. But that's the sad reality. Amir Coffey, he's a good player to keep. Kobe Brown, I like his upside as a young player. They got Kai Jones, the greatest player of all time. But yeah, they got a lot of work to do. And what I would do, I've already touched on it. I personally, you can't run back the Paul George, Kawhi Leonard duo. This was the last year to do it. And Kawhi Leonard failed to stay healthy, and Paul George failed to perform in his absence. This needs to be the last year of this duo. everybody in the Western Conference is getting better. Think the Mavericks that just eliminated y'all aren't going to get better? You're not beating the Thunder, Timberwolves, Nuggets, or Mavericks. I think you need to just. Unfortunately, you gave up so much money so much valuable assets for James Harden. You kind of have to bring him back if he still wants to be there, which he probably doesn't. But I would bring him back. I'd bring Kawhi back. I would move Norman Powell. I don't think you can have Paul George and Kawhi Leonard on the same team anymore. And I think Paul George, you either have to sign and trade via his player option, or you just have to let him walk. And that's unfortunate. We never got to see what this team would look like fully healthy. But yeah, that's the way forward for the Clippers. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George era needs to be over in Los Angeles. If you want to watch any other elimination videos, click on any of the videos. I'll put it in a playlist. I'll just go watch the playlist. But yeah, y'all have a good one. Bye.